Diagnosed with liver cancer at the height of the pandemic, Tracy could have just surrendered. Instead, she became the CEO of her own life. And on this episode of Be Unmessable With, you're going to hear how she turned fear into fuel, found her living donor, traveled to Israel in the midst of it all, and created a support movement that is saving lives, all while navigating survival mode and still saying yes to adventure.
Hey there, and welcome to the Be Unmessable With podcast. I'm your host, Josselyne Herman-Saccio, and today my guest is a remarkable human being. She has faced life's challenges with resilience and determination. As a liver cancer survivor and a living donor liver transplant recipient, Tracy's journey has been one of courage and inspiration and truly being unmessable with. And I have the right to say that because I created that word. So she is definitely an example of what I mean by being unmessable with. And before her diagnosis, she had a thriving career selling advertising and event sponsorship. And today, as a cancer thriver, Tracy dedicates her time to advising and inspiring other living people with liver cancer, people who are living with liver cancer. And she embodies the philosophy of never taking no for an answer. And she advocates for being the CEO of creating your own life. She speaks my language for sure. Her whole story is really a testament to the power of resilience, positivity, and the determination to live life to the fullest despite the obstacles. It's not about having perfect circumstances with no obstacles. You know, having these obstacles and coming out and transcending beyond the obstacles. Welcome, my friend, Tracy Kreutzer. Welcome, Trace.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you said yes. I know this is not your normal thing to do, so I appreciate you. More courage. There you go.
Well,
never ceases to amaze me with you.
It's an honor to be asked. And, we created it being on an adventure this year. So this is an adventure, something new.
That's right. Exactly. All new things. Here we go. And, given this is called Be Unmessable With, and you've worked with me in this methodology of being unmessable with for a while now, it's obvious to say, okay, well, this situation with being diagnosed with liver cancer could take somebody out for the count. They could just go down for the count and just be like, and give up and be resigned. But you didn't. So talk to us about your journey and about what that was like for you and what you used to basically transcend and come to the other side of what could have been like, forget it. Forget about it.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a long answer. I'm not sure that I know exactly three magic tricks to solve this problem of a deadly cancer. But, it happened during COVID, actually right at the point that we were going into lockdown in New York. So, it was sort of like a terrifying time overall for everyone. And then on top of that, I got diagnosed with cancer and had to have, surgery when they were turning down people for surgery, and you couldn't go to the hospital because everyone had COVID and all that. And so, in the beginning, it was very messable. It was really, really scary. I didn't know what to expect. Really, nobody knew what to expect at that time. And, when you Google something like liver cancer or one of the other horrible ones like pancreatic or ovarian, it's all just bad news. And, so in the beginning I was like, well, am I going to die tomorrow? Or how does this work? Nobody really tells you. And, anyway, so the long story short is in the beginning, I was just really scared and not really receiving a lot of information. And what I realized was, in the face of no information and no idea what's going to happen next, all I really had to do, my only choice really was to say how I'm going to be in that situation. And so it was really, really scary. I'm not going to lie. When we talked before, I said, I don't know that I was unmessable. I felt pretty messable at the time. But I just started looking for other resources, looking for things that I could do outside of medical treatment. And, and after a while, I really just had this deep belief that this was not my time to go. So, sort of starting from there, but not knowing, I was really kind of tiptoeing around, I was just sort of creating like, what's the next thing, what's the next thing that I can do? What else can I do, while we're here in lockdown and we can't leave our houses? And
yeah, really. And you have too much information on the internet, and it can be, terrifying because you see all this. I mean, when you talk about ovarian and pancreatic, that's what my birth mother died of, both of those things combined.
Oh my gosh.
So I am constantly getting screened and all of that. Right. But what I hear you saying, which I think is interesting, because I've been interviewing people about one of the things that brought them from that world of reaction into the world of creation, and it's curiosity is a theme. And I can hear that in what you're sharing too. It's like, I just started looking for, what could I do? You don't have to be like the statistics. It's, you're you. So now what are you going to bring to the situation that's unique? So it's interesting. I've been discovering as I'm talking to people that that's a common theme of what allows people to transcend from a difficult circumstance.
Yeah. And I think that that's like sort of where, my not taking no for an answer comes from. Part of it is the curiosity of like, okay, well, if only 5% of the people make it 5 years with liver cancer, like, how do I be that 5%? And, it has to be somebody. And, what did they do? And so I started like looking for resources, meditating, looking in, internally. And then also like, a friend of mine who actually had ovarian cancer introduced me to this book, Radical Remission. And it's like all about these spontaneous remissions. And this researcher who came across like 10,000 cases of people who went into spontaneous remission, and they were never really followed up on. So for her doctoral thesis, her name is Kelly Turner, she looked into these 10,000 people and asked them, like, what are they doing? And she found these 10 common themes that people were doing that were not, it's not that they weren't doing Western medicine. A lot of them were, but they were the things that they could do themselves that weren't related to like taking a pill. And I was like, this is for me. So, that's where it started. And I was like, there's lots that I can be doing for myself. And I don't know if it's going to work, but I just have this, hope and this belief that, if I'm doing everything that I possibly can be doing, that, whatever way that it goes, at least that I know I gave it my all. So that's how I kind of started.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, because those actions that you took, even though you didn't really know if it was going to work or whatever, if you liken that to even when you started your business years ago, or when you're in that mode of creation, whether you succeed or fail, you're empowered, because you're not waiting around. That's the worst thing. Exactly. And what messes with people so much is kind of like, well, I'm in a holding pattern, or, I'm in limbo, or I'm waiting for this financer to get back to me, or I'm waiting for this doctor to get back to me. It's like, as long as you can stay in action, fulfilling your vision, there's an element of being unmessable with that sort of takes over, where you're not stuck in reaction or survival mode. You're creating something, even if you don't know it's going to work. It's remarkable, though, the difference in mood. Talk to me a little bit about that, because given this happened in COVID and everybody's mood was so, talk about being messable with, it was like the weirdest time. And it's still, the impact of it is still out there. What did you do on a daily basis to kind of keep yourself in any kind of, not good mood, that sounds so trite, but like in that space, like a positive of creation. Space. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, I think that, first of all, I think you nailed it, you hit the nail on the head when you said, a lot of it is about waiting and being like reactive. And so like cancer is like that, you spend so much time maybe like doing this treatment and then waiting to see if it works, and then waiting for the doctor to call to tell you the results of the scan, and waiting to see what the blood test results are. And so it can turn into like living for cancer kind of a scenario.
Or like I remember when we were waiting for a donor,
even that's even more so.
Yeah.
But really, like, cancer turns into like waiting around. And even this is way before I even knew I could have a transplant. And what I realized is, like, I don't want my life to be about cancer, like whether I have 3 years left or I have 33 years left. I don't want it to be like me sitting around waiting for somebody to tell me something. Like, what can I do? Even things like, I was like visualizing tumors shrinking and, on a, like what you do every day. Like one thing that I realized, especially during COVID when we were all locked down, is having to keep habits, like good habits and structure when there is no structure, when you're
Yeah.
like suddenly home. And so I had like a lot of structure, and I also was waking up and like creating my day. Like I think I told you, like not only I was like creating a vision for like what's this year going to be about, what's this day going to be about, what's this month going to be about, and then trying to like live into that vision. um, Not knowing whether I had a lot of days left or whether this treatment was going to work. But I just, I tried to do things like go for walks, meditate, do yoga. I created, with some other people, I took this radical remission course. We created a support group, which to this day, we're 4 years now. We just passed our 4-year mark of cancer survivors group. We're across the country, and we all did the radical remission class together. Excuse me. And that's one of the factors from radical remission, is having a close knit support group and having community. I did a lot of like FaceTimes with people and Zooming. I mean, like during COVID, everybody was just home. So, gosh, I can't even remember everything that I did, but I did a lot of meditating. I did a lot of listening to meditations, and, because it was a lot of trying to stay calm.
Yes.
It's hard to create something when you're like at high alert all the time,
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I call being messable with, is being in that sort of amygdala hijack reaction, survival, fight, flight, flee, freeze kind of mode. Your whole nervous system, you can't create. You are in constant reacting to whatever's happening or not happening, even worse, right? Because I remember a bunch of times you and I were either on the phone or on WhatsApp and, waiting for a scan or waiting for the doctor or whatever it was. And it's okay. What are we creating? What are we creating right now? Because if you're not creating, which is what you're saying so powerfully, then you're just reacting. So I love that you did that every day. Like, what am I creating today? Because that is a practice that I do, and that I think makes a huge difference for people, especially if they're going through a difficult circumstance, but not even just with difficult circumstances. You could just wake up and just start going through your day with no deliberate creation, even when things are okay. And it's a different quality of life.
Yeah, it's even more important when you're going through this like survival mode kind of a situation. I find like now that I'm starting to feel better and more normal, like I'll catch myself not creating anything and just going with the flow, because I don't feel like I have to. But it's important all the time. Gosh, what were you saying that I wanted to respond to? Oh, I was in survival mode, literally. Like, so, people go into this, fight or flight mode over the smallest little things, like you were saying to me the other day. But I was literally fighting for my life, like every day. So I had to constantly calm down my nervous system in order to create something. And then what I realized is like, I just want to have a life that is meaningful now, regardless of whether I'm going to be here, in 3 years or 5 years or not. And so I started to find that I was like much more grateful for those moments of having happiness and joy and, going out for a walk with somebody, when you couldn't even be indoors with anyone. And, and I started just being like more of an advocate for myself, like in my whole journey. I felt very like at the mercy of doctors, that they didn't really understand how important it is for your like mental state of mind to be a consideration. And so, they would ask me like, well, what are you expecting from this treatment? And I would say, I'm expecting a cure. And they're like, well, this treatment isn't really a cure. It's just blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, that's what you say, but you asked me what I want out of it, and I want a cure. So like, I'm here going for the cure, and you need to understand that. Like, you can't knock me down and try and tell me that it's not. Like, I'm creating being cured.
Yeah. Get in my game. I'm not getting in your game. You get in my game. And that's one of the things I love about Tracy, and what I love about you is that you don't even realize how much you exercise that muscle of creation. It's like, because sometimes we'll talk and you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm messable with blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no,
Exactly.
you don't get it. You have no idea how much strength you have in that muscle because you've been practicing it for so long. I mean, I remember when we were in the group coaching, you were in the group coaching program that I did last year, when you were waiting for the donor and you were, well, why don't you talk? I mean, what you were creating in that 3-month program, you were just creating all sorts of stuff. You weren't waiting for anything. You were like, your
Well,
trip.
the thing is, like, when we started out, I think at first in like the foundations for being messable, I had a really hard time trying to create, like you were saying to us, what's your dream? And people were talking about what their dreams were and why they weren't doing it and how they might do it. And I was actually getting kind of like angry and resentful because I was like, well, there's a lot of things that I want to do, but I don't have the time left, I don't think, to do that. And so I was really unable to even verbalize what I wanted because I thought, like, what's the point of saying this, because it's probably not going to happen. And then whatever coaching that you were giving me, you were like, yeah, I get it, like there are people that are saying they can't do it because they broke a nail and you actually have cancer,
Or they're too old, or they're too young.
yeah.
And by the way, we all think we have all this time. We don't know. We don't know.
No.
People without cancer die every day, so it's like, it's such an illusion to think we have all this time. I mean, that's one of the things I got in the program that you were just alluding to, the foundation, is there is no someday. I mean, I talk about it like there's no someday, like intellectually, but in reality, there's no someday. And I remember when my brother was dying of AIDS in 1990, and he was in the hospital, like gonna die. There was no like cure, or it was just a matter of days before he died. And I said to him, I'm so scared that you're going to die. And he said, I am going to die. And I'm not scared. He said, because I've done what I wanted to do with my life. I love my husband. He wasn't married, but they were, partners. I love my husband. I love my family. I love the travels that I've done. I've, made a difference. I've taught school. I've, acted, I've produced. He goes, and there's nothing I'm leaving for someday. He goes, but that's not true for you, he says to me.
Wow.
He goes, you're waiting to sing someday. And there is no someday. And that was a big part of why I ended up getting my record deal and pursuing a career in having people make their dreams come true, which is what all this coaching is all about. So the illusion of someday is one of the biggest robbers of the quality of our life, because we think we have all this time and we don't take action on our dreams, because it's like, why bother, whatever. But what did you then end up unleashing in terms of some goals and things that you did want to create, not waiting for the doctor to tell you you could?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a couple of things happened really rapidly. One is that I realized how badly I wanted to go to Israel, and I wanted to do it quickly. And the other is that, speaking of doctors telling you, like doctors told me that I wasn't eligible for a transplant for 3.5 years. They actually never referred me for a transplant. It was only because of the group around me of, really amazing advisors and people, a friend who actually is a doctor, but wasn't my doctor, that said, like, if you ever want to get evaluated, let us know. And so I had just started that process of getting evaluated, and shockingly being told that I was a great candidate for a living donor liver transplant, and nobody ever mentioned that to me. So that had happened. So when we went into this new year of the group coaching course, I said, okay, well, what I'd like is to find a living donor, and to have visited Israel by the time that I get my transplant, and like 3 or 4 other things. I think we narrowed it down to like the top 3. And the course started in January. And I said, like, by the end of February, I want to go on this course. And I actually on this trip to Israel. And I actually described what I was looking for in the trip. And it was the craziest thing how this particular trip came about, because to this day, none of us know where we found this trip. But when my rabbi was reading me the description of the trip, I was like, wait, hang on. And I got like my little piece of paper out. And I read it to him, and I had told him, the highlights of what I was looking for, but it was almost like word for word,
Wow.
the description of the trip. And it was leaving in February. So I literally had like 2 weeks. I registered, it was leaving 2 weeks later. And he actually did like a bunch of fundraising to help me go on this trip because they wanted me to go so badly. And I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't because, I might need no money for medical expenses or whatever. And he was like, we're getting you to Israel, because I had never been. So like by the end of February, which is what I had said, I had gone to Israel.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then the
It
other
was like
thing,
a miracle. I remember that was like, we were
yeah.
all so happy.
It was crazy. And then with the living donor, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was like 5 months of like absolute, like full on marketing plan going all out. Like
Facebook
everyone
sharing,
I knew.
and yes.
Yeah. People creating videos, like friends of mine. I mean, I worked in the media business, so I was very blessed that I had people who had like radio shows and things that were talking about it, but which is not even how I got my donor, but it was amazing. Like how much it like spread around the world. But what was the crazy part is that, in your plan, you always have us give like by when dates that we're going to have everything so we can back into it chronologically. And I only realized this like a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the transplant, that I said by June 1st that I want to have had the transplant. And I had my transplant on May 30th of 2023. So
like
even talking about it, it's like getting me choked up because it's unbelievable that was almost the exact date that I had the transplant. So
and it is like magic, but it's not magic. It's the muscle you have with your words. So you create and fulfill things, and then you can create and fulfill things like that. Like I shared with you before about my grandfather saying he was going to live to 105. And he did, only by virtue of his word, because he almost died like right before. And I said to him, hey, you said 105. And he had a word in the mat. He got reminded that his word had power, and your word has power. So, what are you creating now? What's now? You've been a year now, right? Almost a year.
It'll be a year in May. Yeah. It's amazing to think that, because it's been quite the journey. It was not an easy surgery or an easy recovery, physically, mentally, emotionally, the whole thing. So what I'm creating now, well, in our workshop that we did for 2024, I created a year of adventure. So what I saw was that like I've really been in survival mode for 4 years because I was literally trying to live.
Yeah.
And that what I want for going forward is for my life to be more like full of joy and adventure, and and not just like going on big trips, but that everything that I do be an adventure. Because in the background of my mind, for like, not that this is a fix, but like in the background has been like looming, like cancer and death and like terrible things. And so now I'm like, okay, so if I'm like free to do anything, like everything can be an adventure, I can just let it rip. So but the thing that I'm really, it's terrible to use this word, I know this is not what we're creating, but like I'm hoping that like the love of my life, my soulmate, shows up this year, and that creating a relationship, especially because over the last 4 years I really didn't date, because I was like, it's not really the I don't know, I didn't think it was fair to somebody to be like, hey, I'm not sure if I'm going to be here in a few years, but not that anybody is, but it was quite an intense journey. So I was like, maybe not really the best time to date. So, but now I feel like I'd like to have somebody to go on this adventure with. So that's a big part of it. Yeah.
I say game on. Maybe somebody watching this episode right here, right now, I'll make sure any message you email me, I'll make sure Tracy gets it. So if you have any invitations, anybody out there, or fixer-uppers, I was a blind date with my husband 30 years ago. So blind dates work too, And is there any... Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, and then part two is that, something that I really am passionate about, I'm already sort of doing it, like, but just, piecemeal, is that I really want to advocate and, have a bigger voice out there for, people with liver cancer, to helping them, understand what their options are. And then especially to make sure that people know who are eligible or could be eligible for a transplant to go and get evaluated as soon as possible, and, to know what their options are, because there's just a really big gap between, being diagnosed and then people understanding what their options are. Because I was at one of the best cancer hospitals in the world, and they told me that I wasn't a candidate, and it wasn't true. So
Amazing. That's amazing. And so many of us just take what people say, especially if they're
exactly.
a doctor or medical professional, which is like, well, they know better than us. It's the same thing with financial advisors. It's like, well, they know better than us. But if you really start to get curious and start to look, there's resources that aren't so obvious. Like, is there something you're working on that could make those resources like centralized, or some sort of website or anything that you want us to let our listeners know about?
I'm working on that. I have a website that is not up yet.
Okay.
But it's called thelivers.org. And yeah, I mean, I think I need a lot of help with it. And just kind of gathering all the information that I want to have on it and making sure that it gets onto the website, which I'm no web designer. But
I guarantee you one Facebook post away from a web designer that could do something pretty simple.
It's a project. And I do, like, I run a few Facebook groups. I like 2 or 3 of them. I have, for liver cancer thrivers, and then one that's HCC liver transplant patients, because we're such a small
and we'll
group.
put all these links in the show notes, so that anything you send me, I'll put in there so that people can look, because everybody is a person away from someone in their life having cancer if they don't have it themselves. So it could be a huge resource for people.
And then I had my transplant at UPMC in Pittsburgh, the University of Pittsburgh. University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. Blipped there for a minute. And they actually asked me to start working with the oncology outreach program for liver transplants. So I'm going to start doing some outreach with them, so that the doctors who are treating the people with liver cancer are also aware of living donor and of what needs to happen, so that they're giving the right advice to patients. And then actually, just in the last couple of weeks, a former mentor of mine from Team in Training asked me to be a part of a race that she's doing. She actually donated a kidney, and I'm a not liver cancer recipient, living donor liver transplant.
I know that's hard to say. It's hard to say. That's a mouthful.
But she's going to be organizing a 5K race for awareness of being a donor, and whether it's a kidney, liver, or bone marrow donor. And so she asked me to be part of the committee. So I just started doing that also. So things are just sort of showing up in the arena of, paying it forward.
I love it. I love it. And is there anything I can support you with? Anything you want some coaching in? I'm at your service.
Well, I'm always asking you for coaching in the dating department, but I don't know if we've exhausted our resources. I
don't know. What actions are you taking right now?
Well, despite my dislike of them, I'm on a couple of different dating sites. I actually added another one. I did go on a few dates not related to websites since the beginning of the year. I started playing pickleball. Unfortunately, I broke my ankle though. And so that was a really good way of meeting new people. So I've been doing, I'm trying to do it a little bit more naturally, like organically. Socially, because not just for me, but, I feel like you just get to know somebody when they're not trying to interview each other, like a date tends to be from these dating websites. So I like where you get to like know each other naturally from like playing together and being normal in your daily life. So,
and even though you're not playing pickleball, can you still go watch it with your ankle?
Well, now I just got the boot off, so I'm allowed to go back to it in about 2 weeks. it seems like really soon to me, but we'll see. But yes, I could go watch. And then I've actually been telling people and asking people who, if they know anyone, and
Good.
telling
That
them
was
that I'm
one of the
getting
things
out
we
there.
talked about. Yep.
Yeah. And so actually one of our mutual friends, Maria, she talked about it on a dating podcast that she was interviewed on, and she actually mentioned my name.
That's
So she was,
hysterical.
yeah. So I have friends that are, on the lookout. I'm doing that a little bit more.
Good. Yeah. And, rather than just saying, this is the tweak I would make, saying, I'm dating again. If you have anybody, I'd make a real request. Like, I request you fix me up with one person to 10 people, and now they're either going to say yes or no. But if they say yes, it's not just throwing it out there. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's more targeted, and it's more like their butts on the line for a result if they say yes, rather than, I'll keep my ears open, which then people forget. And,
All right.
so
So
that would be
I
the
request
one
that you
action.
fix me up with one person. Got it.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, okay, let me see. Who could I thought you were asking me. So
I am asking you.
I'm gonna find somebody to fix you up with.
If I can't ask you, I'm in big trouble. If I'm asking you for coaching on it and I'm not asking you.
All right, good. So 9 more by the end of next week you're gonna ask, okay? So ask 9 more people.
9 more by next week. That's a lot.
You can make a list. Well, the first action would be to make a list of 9 people that you could make that request of. And then,
I only came up with 3 the last time, but I'll try and expand my list. Now I was thinking maybe I can just be more bold. Like I mainly was asking women, but I could ask men also.
Oh, I would definitely ask men. Who do you think I'm going to go to after this conversation? I'm going to go to Michael. I'm going to say, who do you have? Because I don't know single guys. Where am I going to meet them? It's like, unless you want to meet women, then I can probably find some. Okay, men.
Jewish men.
Jewish men. Okay, so now we got a narrowed down pool. We got
Jewish
it. Okay,
men,
good.
And in the age range of, I would say, like 50 to 65.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now we have a parameters.
Ideally on Long Island.
My God! Now we're really okay.
Ideally on Long Island.
We need like
city,
a
but
street easy for dating. That's what we need. I guess that's what those apps are, though. I haven't been on an app in ever.
Well, that's what I think this app Hinge is like that, where you're actually located close to each other. They're more likely to be locally, but
that's the one that's designed to be deleted.
Yes, and it makes it more likely that you're going to actually meet the person if they're close enough by. That's my experience.
And are you on Hinge?
I just went back on Hinge, yes.
Okay, good. So then the other action I would say is spend at least 10 minutes a day looking at what's there on Hinge. Because if you, like you said, like a daily practice is the way that you create something, not from brushing your teeth once a month or doing yoga once a month. You have a daily practice, and then you get to develop that muscle and create all sorts of magic and results in it. So daily practices, 9 more people. I'm going to ask Michael who we have.
And by when will you have that person?
I will have, I would say within the month. Within the month, I'll have a person. I mean, I'll ask Michael today, but within a month, I will have somebody for you. Okay. The game is on.
Game on.
All right.
Game on. Okay, so that means that we're going to meet somebody that I'm going to be dating. I'm just going to make that like kind of generic. By June 1st, the anniversary the anniversary of my transplant.
Isn't that great? Yeah. And this episode won't air till after that, but we're going to find out. We're going to have a follow-up, and I'll be able to do a little not post-mortem. That sounds horrible. A postscript. What postscript is that? Yeah, it's a postscript.
That sounds better.
And by the way, she's had this many dates and da-da-da-da-da. And yes. Okay, good. Yes. We'll have to update.
And I'll have had my 1-year follow-up, which is on May 29th. So I can tell you, knock wood, that I will confirm that I'm cancer-free at 1 year.
Yeah. Well, you are such an inspiration to me, Tracy. I just adore you, and I love working with you. And, in my experience, you have taken every tool and really run with it. And I just am so happy for you and for all the people that you are now making a difference with. So thank you so much for saying yes to being on here. And we will look forward to the update, which I'll tag on to the end of this episode for sure.
Oh, thank you. And I love working with you. That's why I say yes to everything that you ask me.
Yeah, and I'm a yes back to you. So now I got to go find a guy who lives on Long Island. All right. The Long Island part I'm not promising. But
It doesn't have to be on Long Island. It could be in this city. Just find the right guy. That's the most
okay. Okay. We got to just find. Hey, listen, I was like, I'll have 1 cup of coffee with Michael. That when my sister fixed me up with him, 1 cup of coffee, I said, and that was 30 years ago. So
That's right.
28,000 million cups of coffee later. So
That's right. And your parents are on Long Island, so it's not
they
so
are.
hard
That's
for you
true.
to know somebody on Long Island.
You know, maybe a doctor. Maybe I'll find a doctor.
Maybe Harvey knows somebody. You don't know.
That's right.
Sold a painting to someone.
I'm going to ask him, my dad, Harvey, who painted this painting behind me. Yeah, I will. I will ask them. They're not, they don't get out much, but he might know some people. I know
Everybody knows Harvey.
You never know.
You never know.
I'll get him in the game. Once we get him in, forget it.
There you go.
Who knows? Maybe his chiropractor he talks about all the time. Okay.
Exactly. You don't know.
I love it.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Tracy.
You.
Thanks for being here. And everybody else, we'll see you on the next episode of the Be Unmessable With podcast. If you're ready to stop waiting and start living intentionally, then get my free 5-day promise game. It's the easiest way to build momentum by keeping small promises to yourself. And it's linked below. But being inspired by someone else's breakthrough isn't really enough. If you want to create your own, this next video shows you how to build resilience into reality. Watch it now.